Well, thank you, everyone. We'll continue the presentations with our next presenter. Ben Long is going to be speaking now on marketing, not such a dirty word after all. Please make him feel welcome.
I used to think that marketing was not for me. I thought that marketing was for mega extroverts who are interested in making things look shiny on the outside, even if they're rotten in the middle. Dirty. Hear me out. I used to work as a defense scientist working on designs of security systems and security protocols using set theory and logic. And this is an example of one of my designs. There was absolutely no ambiguity in these designs, but the problem was hardly anybody else could understand them. They simply weren't accessible to a wide audience. And that bothered me. By the way, that's a specification of public key and symmetric key encryption and decryption for anyone who's interested. But I wrote it about 15 to 20 years ago, so don't ask me how to explain it now. These are two of my favorite quotes. Nothing in science has any value to society if it is not communicated. Furthermore, science isn't finished until it's communicated. Communication is indeed a two-way street. And so I believe we have certain responsibilities in terms of how we communicate what we know with others. We owe it to our engineers to be precise, to represent their ingenuity and hard work in the most accurate way, and so as not to mislead our audience. But there's no point in being precise if we're not being understood. So we owe it to our audience to be accessible, to be understood by anyone who wants to learn from us, to meet them also where they are on their learning journey. But I also believe we owe it to ourselves to be far-reaching with our content. We have limited time in each day, and we put a lot of it into researching and writing great content. But there's no point in creating great content that's precise and easily understood if nobody's reading it. So we want to make sure we're writing content that our audience wants, and we want to make sure that it's getting in front of them. So what's this got to do with marketing? With a balance of precision, accessibility, and reach, we can promote valuable information to a diverse audience. And that's what content marketing is all about, promoting valuable content to a diverse audience. You're putting in, oh yeah. So, not so dirty after all. In fact, precision, accessibility, and reach is my content happy place. You're putting in the effort already, the research, the writing, to make great content. So I say put on your content marketing hat. Think about how you can write and promote more valuable content to an increasingly diverse audience, and have your ever-growing body of knowledge and content work harder for you. First, let's talk about reach. The more helpful your content, and the more people you're helping with it, the more valuable it is. So ask yourself, how can I find out what my audience wants to know about most? And it's an open question with lots of answers, but here are some examples. You can talk to your customer support teams. They have great insights into what your customers are doing with your products and the things they're struggling with. So there's a great place to start for ideas for useful and valuable content. Talk to customers directly, set up a call with them, or attend the same conferences they're attending. Work with your support teams or customer success teams to set up some kind of communication channel with them so you can communicate with them directly. Access your customer support information in tools such as Salesforce. There's a lot of information that goes and a lot of discussions that goes on in those tools where you can find out more about what your customers are struggling with. Check out relevant community forums like Stack Overflow, where people are asking questions about certain topics, and you can find out which topics are most popular. And you can monitor Google Analytics, for instance, to find out more about how many page views you're getting on certain pieces of your content. You can even set yourself some goals around Google Analytics as well, like how many blog views I want to be getting per month, or how many blog views a certain piece of content you'd like your content to get each month. So here's an example from Stack Overflow. I'm sure everybody here has used Stack Overflow, so I don't really need to go into the details. But I can search on certain topics like HTML, and I can then sort on things like newest questions, most active questions, and most popular questions as voted up by Stack Overflow users. Incidentally, the most popular for HTML is, why does HTML think Chuck Norris is a color? I'm not sure I'm about to go write a piece of content about that, but and on the second item there, you can see, how do I check whether a checkbox is checked in jQuery? And that's actually got 4 million views. So if you're writing content about jQuery, that might be a good place to start. Also on Reach, when you finish writing a piece of content, or you have answered a technical question on a forum, say, or via email, don't stop there. Make the most of your efforts. Think about, so ask yourself, where else could I share my knowledge and content? Or who else might benefit from reading it? So for example, you have mailing lists. You have other colleagues and other departments in your organizations that you can share with them via Slack or email or whatever communication platform you use. There are also the other online communities and forums, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, the docs, and your company blog or personal blog. So company blog is now mainly where I'm spending most of my time at the moment. But my colleague in the audience there, Tyler, spends most of his time in the docs. And I guess depending on where you're coming from, you would look in the appropriate areas. So say if you're writing in docs, you might think about how you might contribute some of your content to your company blog. Or if you're a developer and you've just written a great answer to a technical question in a forum, then you might think about how you can incorporate that into the docs or write up your own blog about that as well. And when sharing your content on social media, find the best hashtags to use. For instance, you could use a tool like Hashtagify to find out the most popular hashtags to use, but also other hashtags that are related to those. And that can give you more exposure. So when thinking about reaching more people with our content, we also need to think about how accessible it is to our diverse audience. Different people have different motivations and different levels of knowledge. I know there are only 2 of me there, so it's not exactly very diverse, but anyway. So when writing content, ask yourself, what questions might different people in my audience have? They might be asking questions like, what is this product or feature? Or what is this? Why should I use it? How do I use it? How do I get started quickly with it? How do I get into the depths of it, into the more advanced content? Or how do I solve this particular issue, also known as troubleshooting? And the answers to these questions can be individual sections or pieces of content in their own right and help build up a body of content that caters for your diverse audience. But when catering for such diversity, we need to make sure people can easily find the information they're looking for. Good specific headings are signposts that help members of your diverse audience find what they're looking for. And when talking about accessibility, we should also consider people who rely on assistive technologies, such as people with vision impairments who rely on screen readers. And once again, headings are really highly valuable for those people as well, because headings provide them with an at-a-glance view of the entire content, so they can navigate to the particular parts that they're interested in as well. And the more specific you are with your headings, the better for search engines as well, in terms of it being picked up by your audience. So for example, if you're writing content about CSS animation, you might use headings like these. What are CSS animations? The benefits of using them. A quick introduction to CSS animations. But of course, I wouldn't actually write using them, as I'm saying now. I'm just saying that, thank you. What number does that say? 10, thank you. Sometimes there is a tendency to write what are CSS animations, then benefits, using them. But it's always better to spell it out in full, especially for search engines, like when people are searching for your content as well. A quick introduction, 5 CSS animation examples to try, a detailed guide to CSS animation, and how to use CSS to fade HTML text in and out. So that one's even more specific. And there's no reason why you can't mirror your headings with the types of questions you were thinking about your audience asking, as we did previously. So I've just done a one-to-one match there. Now, Google can help you get more of an idea of how to phrase your headings, as well as related questions that people are asking. And I use this all the time to create my headings, because I don't necessarily know exactly how other people are talking about these things. So if I'm creating a piece of content about animating text in HTML, then I might put these keywords in Google, and it will just show me a whole lot of things that people are searching on, where I can get other ideas. Now, I know it's not as detailed as Nicola's user testing, but I think Google can provide a place to start as well, because it then shows me, oh, CSS, yeah, I should probably use CSS in my heading somewhere. Oh, how to, yeah, good point, I should use how to. In fact, that one there right about in the middle, how to animate text in HTML using CSS, that's perfect. That's nice and specific and exactly on the topic that I'm writing about. And yeah, so it also shows other things that people are asking around these topics. So there also you can get some ideas of what else you might write about that people are looking for, and searches related to that query. And I actually used that as a method to come up with those examples for the CSS animation earlier, pretty much by typing in what is CSS animation, why should I use CSS animation, and those topics on the left were more like the topics that came up in Google. So I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds more like what people are searching for and how people would normally phrase that. Okay, here's an interesting example that happened recently. One of our engineers wrote an article about building Dispenser. So Dispenser is a content delivery network, but this was the initial title for it. And I was thinking, I think we can probably do better than that if we want to really tell our audience what we're writing about. So I thought about the questions the audience might be asking about what was in this article. So what is it, and what can I learn from it? And the answers to those were, it's a new CDN infrastructure, and what can I learn from it? 3 tips from improving performance in the cloud. Perfect. Those are my new headings for 2 different pieces of content. So instantly the audience knows more about what they're reading. And I can also catch different members of my audience depending on what they're looking for when they're searching, say. And on to precision, something that I think most of us here don't really have a problem with. But I'll talk about it anyway, because there's a point to be made. But I'll start with a story. My brother-in-law recently, actually one of my brother-in-laws is in this room, but it wasn't him, it was somebody else. I'm just thinking about, it was brothers-in-law, isn't it? It's not brother-in-laws. Anyway. Yep. Bought this for my daughter for Christmas. And this was on the box. And we were like, great, this is fantastic. She was excited. Anyway, she opened up the box, and of course, the wooden box was inside. She opened that wooden box, and nothing was inside it. So she felt a bit cheated. Well, actually, she took it really well. My brother-in-law was really pissed off. So the point here is that we need to be accurate. Oh, yeah, in what we're saying, because being pissed off is something we never want our customers or developers or users to feel. So precision is important. People want content from sites that display a high level of EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And that's the content that Google recommends as well. And I reckon a great deal of EAT is established based on accuracy and completeness and precision. Now, as I said, most of us here, I don't think, have a problem with precision. But I mention it because as you make your content more accessible to different audiences, although we need to be precise, we don't always need to be thorough all in the one place. So there's a balance that is required, because people don't necessarily want all the details right from the beginning, all in the one place. Sometimes we can drip feed the information as they need it along their learning journey, or depending on what they need. So my pro tip for precision is simply link to more details where required. But there's always a tricky balance that has to be made. And it's always, oh, should I put this paragraph in or should I take this paragraph out? How much information is too much information or not enough information, etc. But with links, I think we can't go wrong. So for example, this is a piece of content I wrote recently about how to go mobile with our tiny MCE WYSIWYG editor. I said, step 1, get TinyMCE 5.1. If you're a cloud user, it should already be updated. Great, you've got nothing else to do. But if you need more info, check out the docs. Step 2, configure it. Add this line of code. It's as easy as that. But if things do get a bit tricky, check out the documentation for more info. So it's basically, I've documented the happy path with links to the docs for more information. And finally, back to reach, share and celebrate the work you've done with the people or the list or the forum where you got the idea from, if it's appropriate. Like, yeah, this doesn't always happen this way, but if somebody has suggested some, or really struggling with something, and you write up your content, go back to the forum or the email and let them know you've done it. Say, here it is, thanks, let's do it again. And you might use phrases like, here's some content I wrote about X, put a link to it, thanks for your input, and let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. So that's about it from me. Yeah, so are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have time for some questions. One question over here.
You mentioned a few times to encourage a diverse audience.
Yeah.
Would you ever feel like actually what you need to do is narrow your scope and like narrowing your audience, or do you always want the content narrow but actually you've got a broader audience in mind?
Good point. So I think probably the headings comes into this as well, because I want to be bringing a lot of people to my content. So I want to be catering for a large number of people who are all looking for different pieces of information. But eventually they're going to be wanting to find specific things. And so I think the headings comes into play there, where you need to be really, specific about what's where, and so they can find what they're looking for. Yeah.
Any other questions? No questions. Okay. Thank you. Everyone, please thank Ben.